welcome to the Stronger Than My Excuses show. I'm Julie Watson and I'll be your host for the 8 weeks of the pilot program. So each week we really aim to find out why so many businesses fail in the first 2 years. And we don't want to just know why, but we want to fix that. So our panel's discussion will not just give you inspiration, but we're going to give you real tools that you can take away to make sure that you become stronger than your excuses. We want you to stop procrastinating and start taking action. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the land of the Darkinjung people, and we really appreciate this and we respect them and their elders past and emerging. Now I'd like to introduce our panel and our co-host for today. Firstly, Sharon Burgess. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon.
So Sharon is the coordinator of the Community and Business Women's Network, and it's a great organisation, and it's a subsidiary of the Iris Foundation, which is an awareness program for suicide prevention. And Sharon also works in the Wild Neighbourhood Centre and is a really busy lady in our community. So I really appreciate you joining us, Sharon.
Thanks, Julie. I enjoyed being here. I look forward to sharing some hints and tips with the local business and also the community sector.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks. Next, I'll introduce Adam Rice. Adam, now I need to read Adam because it's a mouthful. Adam's business is in Budgewoi, and he's the Principal Director of AJR Counselling, Coaching and Consulting. He's credentialed mental health clinician, NLP Master Practitioner, psychotherapist, a co-joint lecturer at the Faculty of Health and Medicine at the University of Newcastle. Welcome to the show, Adam.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks for having me. I'm really pleased to be here today because today's topic is something that I come across a lot in my business with my clients. So I'm looking forward to sharing some tips today.
Can't wait to hear your tips. Yes, it's great. So let's start now by introducing our guest.
Yes, we'd like to welcome to the show our Deputy Mayor of the Central Coast Council, Jane Smith. So welcome. Jane's been a huge supporter of small business and also our women's networking group, so we really appreciate that. She's most likely had her fair share of doubts and fears during her time in these positions. We welcome her to the show to share her personal insights. So welcome today, Jane.
Thank you. Good morning. It's great to be here.
Thanks. And Adam, if you could introduce Matt for us, please.
And as President of the Wyong Regional Chamber of Commerce and the owner of the LA Group, Matt Lusted has seen many businesses come and go, and will share why so many businesses fail so early in the entrepreneurial run. He'll also share how businesses can become successful by pushing forward with their goals. Please welcome Matt Lusted.
Thanks, Alan. Great to be on the panel this morning.
Last week we gave a small introduction to the show so that people could understand what we were trying to achieve and the format of the show. So our first episode is the one you can refer to if you need to go back and find out a bit more about what the show is all about.
I'd like to remind everybody that we are here with filming in front of a live studio audience. So thank you to those that are here this morning. And we're coming to you live from the Nexus Smart Hub here in Wyong. So thank you for having us, Nexus.
Thank you. And we really appreciate the support of our sponsors. We couldn't do this without them, and you'll see the sponsors coming up on your screen. But in particular, AJR Counselling, Coaching and Consulting, who are our primary sponsor for the series. So we really couldn't do it without you, so thank you. Although the topics that we discuss would suit anyone, we're particularly targeting micro, small and medium business, as well as community organisations, not-for-profits and charities. So there's lots of people we can help with our show.
And remember, we'll wrap up every show with a tool that you'll be able to take away that will help you move forward and achieve your goals. Some of our future guests include the Central Coast Regional Director of New South Wales Business Chamber. We also have a lawyer, a marketing consultant, colour and fashion consultant, a mobile banker, interior designer, international keynote speaker, a radio announcer and authors and many more business community leaders.
Thanks, yes. And last week we talked about isolation and how to stop isolating and start connecting. We had a really good discussion, but it's only through networking that I met all of the people that I'm meeting on the show today and that are coming in future shows. So it's incredible how that can help. Today's topic is doubts and fears, believe in yourself. So many of us have negative thoughts in our own head that aren't real in the real world. So we're going to discuss why that happens, what holds us back, and what we can do to prosper and succeed. So please make sure that you ask questions, comment, hit the like button and share as much as you can so that we can get this out to as many businesses and community organisations as possible. The discussion begins. So I'm going to start with the first question. Why does self-doubt happen to so many people right when they're starting a business and so enthusiastic? Jane, I'm going to start with you on our first question. What has your personal experience been with doubt or fear, or do you know anyone else that this has happened to?
So my experience has largely been with not-for-profit organisations, and then of course getting onto council and becoming mayor. So I think self-doubt and fear is a real part of all of that. That fear of failure, it happens to everybody, but also that you're moving into unknown territory. And I think with that comes a lot of worry about what is unknown. So it can be a real motivating force as well, but it also brings with it that self-doubt. And with all of those things, you're faced with change, and change is a real challenge for many people. So I think a key part of moving forward is really understanding that change will happen and how you work with that change.
Yeah. It's a natural thing, isn't it, to have that fear and doubt and worry, and then it's how you deal with it, isn't it? So, Matt, what has your experience been with anything like that? And the funny thing is, I know that you're quite confident and you've been in business for a long time, and I might bring this up that we had a Wyong Regional Chamber of Commerce casual lunch.
Yes.
And we sat there and chatted about what's going on, and you said, well, I've never really had that fear of running a business because it was in my family, and yet so many people do. And you put it to me, why is this not being taught in schools? So can you elaborate on...
Well, firstly, we all suffer from fear and doubt. I do as well. I find it's how you harness that. A lot of people live in too much fear, but you've got to just write what those fears are, write them down, and to objectively answer those. Once you know what they are, you can move forward and not let those fears hold you back. But certainly, that's probably got more to do with entrepreneurial skills, and I just don't find that's been taught at school. I remember being at school at Wyong High School. We just went along for the 75th celebrations at Wyong High on Friday night. It was great. But in school, the only options really were to be employed, what sort of job you're going to do, or what further study you're going to do. There was nothing about backing yourself and being prepared for that. And it doesn't matter what area of life you come from, there's a lot of people with entrepreneurial skill sets that are there, that are just natural, that are busting to come out, but we're not providing that as an opportunity for them to go and train them into.
And the fear, I guess, and doubt would be lessened if they had a few of those basic strategies and skills.
Life skills, that's right.
Yeah, it's amazing. Adam, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are a little bit similar to Matt's. I think we believe a lot of what we're told, and questions that people will actually throw at you when you're starting out in business, especially people who aren't in business, and why would you do that for? Why would you put yourself out there? Why would you put yourself out there and make yourself vulnerable? But you can't have that courage without vulnerability. And sometimes I think be comfortable being uncomfortable, because it just shows you that change is happening and that you can move forward just that one step at a time. It can be overwhelming, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's what can make people really self-doubt a lot as well.
Yeah, you would have seen a lot of that, Sharon, I guess, with a lot of the women you see, because it tends to be, I don't know if you can back me up on this, women way more often have that fear and doubt and don't back themselves compared to men.
Yeah.
No, I have to disagree there. I think women might be more honest with themselves and each other.
Oh, okay, maybe.
And I think with men, there's a lot of bravio there that, we've got the same fears.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
The fear of the unknown.
Yeah, and yet you see a guy who's going to start up a plumbing business, out there he goes, he just does it.
Yep.
but I guess there's other things going on that you won't talk about.
That's
whereas the
right.
We
women
do
will.
talk.
And
Yeah,
we do.
that's
You're
right.
right,
We do talk well, don't
yeah.
we?
Yeah, we do. Women need women.
Yeah, so how do you, what do you see when women come to you with fears and doubts? Do you see much of that with the networking, the women that you meet in networking?
Sometimes, but absolutely in the community sector as well. So
Mm.
there's things that programs that we put in place to help the women that we come across in the community. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's very, very needed in
Yes.
our community, in all communities. So, all right, well, we're going to move on to the next question, which is how much of the fear and the doubt is real? Matt, you've had lots of success in business, and how much of it do you think is know-how compared to mindset?
Yeah, well, firstly, on the fear, it's as real as you allow it to be. So a lot of it's got to do with all it's trying to control the circumstances, and I think that's where we're missing a lot of opportunity, because we try and control the environment that we're in all the time through fear, that we try and control every circumstance what it is, but and it's got to do with risk. So if you're trying to control and limit the amount of risks, sometimes you can basically you can never get rid of risk completely, but you've got to get to a point where you're comfortable with that risk. And that's where I find the levels of people in business on what level of risk they're prepared to actually take.
That's really interesting.
It is, but the exciting
What-
thing is,
Yes.
on that risk, that's where it really happens, on what you're prepared to actually take in the way of risk, because the higher level of risk that you're comfortable within, it might not be the same for somebody else, that's where life happens. You look at documentation these days and things like that, everything is to sign off or to shed risk onto other people, onto other managers or under groups or other contractors, but the whole thing is, and life and doing exciting things, that's where the adrenaline rush is as well.
Yes.
When you're actually in that area of risk, that's where life is, and that's what really kicks us on. So when you try and write it off each time and sign it away and everything's in their boxes, and you go out and do that task, it doesn't have the same level of excitement or the same level of reward, because you've removed all the factors that can really make it happen.
So I would take that as maybe 50-50. You've got to know where the risk is, but you've also got to have the right mindset to be able to
Well,
attack that.
In risk, that's where the opportunity is,
Yes,
because most people aren't in that space.
absolutely, yes. Jane?
Well, I agree with Matt. I think that's absolutely right, that a lot of that excitement and opportunity is through risk. I suppose some of the fear, though, and some of the anxiety that can come from that is when that risk isn't calculated. And I think it's important to have calculated risk, especially for small business. It takes time to build that solid foundation and then to be able to move out into other areas and expand your horizons. And that's a really important part of being successful. But I think people need to appreciate that it's not going to happen overnight, that you need to build that foundation and then calculate the risk, but it's important that you do go out further, you do step out of your comfort zone, because that's where you build success. So I think those elements really contribute to long-term success.
Yeah, and I think, Adam, I could see you nodding your head with what both Matt and Jane were saying. Give us your contribution on that.
Yeah, I kind of agree again with Matt, and and also with the risk, because that's where the opportunities are. And I guess in my business, how I kind of do is I actually look at it as an experiment. So I'll try something and see if it works. If it doesn't work, I'll try something else to make it work. So it's kind of like in that risk, but looking at, like you said as well, is making sure that you've got that solid foundation first to start from, and I think sometimes some businesses may actually fail quickly because they do too much too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
You get the foundation there, and then you can start to experiment with things. So
I when I go to the women's networking group, I love it because what it does is it doesn't teach strategies as such. What it's doing is helping that mindset. But I'm really thinking that risk factor is something that I might bring into my talks, because I think all of those women, I see them all at the networking, and I've been networking on the coast for probably 20 years, and I can tell you that the group of people I used to work with 20 years ago are not the same group now. There's probably 10 to 15 people that I'll constantly see, and you guys are some of them. But there's a whole lot of new people there, and you feel like saying, do you realise that 80% of you may not be here in 2 years' time? Because that's the stat, that 80% of small businesses will close down within the first 2 years. And I love what you do at your networking, which is bringing them not the workplace health and safety strategies and how to write a business plan, but the real encouragement. So can you elaborate on how the type of people you look for speakers and things like that at your...
Well, we're all about local women, local stories. So it's not a local business coming in, sort of spruiking their wares to our community of women. So that's where we're a little bit different. It's all about the connection that the women are having with each other. Especially, there's a lot of women that work alone, work from home, and they work alone. So they really enjoy coming out. It's all about mindfulness as well.
It is, and they're learning from each other at the same time as hearing from a speaker that's just someone from their community.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's
So
amazing.
it's real life.
I'm going to add to that. When I asked you the question first up, Matt, I was asking what percentage do you think, how much is mindset, how much is strategy, I guess, or know-how? And I had written down here, I think it's 80% fear and doubt and 20% strategy but I can see where you're coming from with that risk factor. It sort of changes my mind on that a little bit. But the reason I had that was because you just can't move forward. It doesn't matter how excited you are in the beginning. As soon as those fears come in, if you're not attacking those thoughts in your own head, you can't move forward. So I feel like for me, and probably for men as well, that I don't realise, because men do tend to keep it to themselves, and they look very confident, but they're really, really not. So I really think that for me, the fear and doubt that was in my head for years overtook all the lessons I'd learned, all of the strategies, a business plan. I've written lots of things, and I've had lots of businesses, from a surf shop to a Mexican restaurant to a fencing, building fences, and none of them were the success I wanted them to be. And now I've overcome those fears and doubts. I've thrown that away. I've started taking action, using action habits, and I can really feel myself progressing and things are moving forward, and now I'm in a much better position. So, yeah, for me, I feel like it's more 80-20, but what do you think about that, Adam?
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with Matt again.
Yeah.
It's 50-50. I think it's either one way or the other, but I think the issue is actually picking it up and noticing and having that awareness. And I often think about, I look at the 3A strategy for me. If there's an awareness there and acceptance, well then that'll allow you to take some action. So it's all about that awareness at first and knowing that there is fear there and you can do something with it.
So maybe I'm just a slow learner. I'm serious. I would call myself a seminar junkie. So I went to seminar after seminar, and some of them were about mindset, but learning about business. And for 30 years, I've been going to seminars and learning things. And it's only in these last few years that I've really learnt about that you can learn confidence. And suddenly things have changed for me. So that's why I felt like it was 80-20, but that...
Well, it's just life experience, Julie, so, and that's what you're tapping into now,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Why couldn't I learn that life experience at 25? All right, so now we're going to get into the positive part. Why? So the question here is, why do we worry so much about these things, and what can we do about it? So I know that beginning is probably the hardest thing, so I'm going to go to you on this one, Adam. How can we start to make this change to be stronger?
Yeah. This is probably one of the most common problems that not a problem, but common things that I see in my clients who come and see me for coaching, especially business coaching, that they have a fear. It's a fear of failure, but fear of failing and showing it to somebody else and letting somebody else down or letting a family member down because they you know, or actually proving a family member or a friend right,
Right.
that where they've actually
Yep.
said, you know, why are you doing that for? Why are you putting yourself out there? That's not going to work. So there is that thing. One of the things that I do say to my clients a lot of the time is, you know, what other people think of you is none of your business, and kind of, you know, take ownership of yourself. And you know, I guess one of the things that I think is really important is to, you know, start thinking about what I get my clients to do. Is to think about what they want, not what they don't want. Because when we start thinking about, often I'll ask my clients, what is it you actually want? And they'll start telling me what they don't want.
Yeah.
So they're focusing on the things that they don't want. And so when you reverse that and you say, okay, what is it you actually want though? It's kind of like if I said to you, what happens if I said to you, don't think of a pink elephant? You start thinking of one. Yeah? So you're always thinking about what you don't want. But if I said to you, okay, so what is it you want? You know, you start to think about the possibilities rather than the things that might not happen. Yeah.
Yeah, Jane?
Similar response in that I think it's really important to focus on the things that you can control. You can't control what other people think of you, and so it's important to focus on what you can control. And I think if there's a bit of negativity around you, then for me it's always been important to connect with core values. You know, what are the core values that I'm trying to bring to this? Why am I doing it? What is it that's motivating me? And just check in with those. And if they're still true, and if I'm still true to those, and they're informing my choices, then I feel like I'm on the right track. I feel like I'm being true to what I'm trying to achieve.
And for you, I guess a lot of that is community.
Absolutely,
And
yeah,
that
very
would
much
be driving.
community. And sometimes when you get that fear and self-doubt and you get that churn in your stomach, it means that you're facing a challenge. It doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're facing a challenge, and that's when you need to check in and say, okay, well, what do I do here? And sometimes the hard thing is the right thing to do. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And Matt, how have you overcome any fears about your risks?
Yeah, there's probably too many examples. I'm doing it right now, aren't I?
Yeah, that's right.
But I find we're all social beings, so yeah, we all want to be accepted. So I think that's a lot to do with it. You've got to be careful of that negative talk. Yeah.
I was going to ask you about, I think you mentioned once some businesses that you've seen starting up in Wyong and how they got started, because I think you've seen with them, you know, the fear of the risk that they've got to take.
Yeah.
How have you seen them overcome it, or have you been able to support them with that?
Yeah, we're involved in the Wyong Town Centre at the moment, in the Northern Growth Corridor, the heart of the Northern Growth Corridor. Bit of a plug for Wyong there.
Yes.
But yeah, there's a lot of small businesses. We've been a part of basically standing side by side with council when the council started up the Art House in Wyong, which was a great facility. We needed more restaurants to go out to as a part of that. So we've developed a nighttime economy by renovating used shop spaces and creating something new and vibrant. But it's only new and vibrant for the people that you've had actually starting those businesses. And I will say that they're hard to find. But the businesses we've got in place now, they're people who've had some hard paths and they're out there backing themselves. We've got families, first-time business owners, younger people starting up cafes and the like as well, training organisations. It's quite incredible. But we've found one of the best ways in support is in supporting each other. And particularly when you own that property, you've got to be very careful of how much you interfere with those businesses. So we're there to give them as much support as they'd actually like. But we find the best support is actually when they get together and actually work together as a team. And that's community. And that's what we want to bring back into the town. That's what I remember as a kid.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like is coming back. It's exciting.
Yeah. And Sharon, I think that's what you're doing,
Yeah,
aren't you?
that's what we're
Community,
creating, yeah, absolutely.
connection.
Yeah,
And the ladies that
the
come
ripple
to,
effect. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and-
amazing.
I see it at your networking events all the time. Women will be coming along on their own, and within a couple of events, they're walking in and getting together with ladies they've met last time and meeting more and more people. And I've seen one lady really take off, and she's starting her own business now. And She came along and didn't even know what business she wanted. She just knew she wanted to do something, and came along, and now it's amazing. So, again. So now I'm going to ask if you can just give us quickly a main point that someone can take away from the discussion today. Matt.
Oh, I'm first off.
Yes.
Well, today's topic's all been about doubts and fears, so I've found that actually acknowledging them and actually writing down your doubts and fears and working through them. But the main thing is develop a support network. So developing a support network when you're going into business, now it can be family, it can be friends, it can be an industry specialist that you're going in with, and your basic solicitor, accountant, etc. But you need people around you. Small business, you shouldn't have to try and do it alone. So get a support network around you, people that you can trust, and open up and actually speak about your fears and see if you can actually address them. So getting a support network around you is very important.
And Jane?
So for me, some of the key things are finding the reason why, finding with, hopefully it's a passion, but even if it's not, your opportunity to follow a passion about why you're doing it. And then similarly, find those people around you that can inspire you or mentor you or help support you. I think that's really important. You can't feel alone. You need to reach out and find those people that you can learn from.
A good way of actually doing that, particularly if you're around the Northern Growth Corridor, is join your regional chamber of commerce. A little bit of luck there.
Well done. And Adam? Yeah.
Yeah, again, I agree. I think isolation, as we spoke about last week, is a big key factor. But I think also changing the language that you use. A good example is like in our business meetings, if we've got a decision to make, instead of thinking about, okay, so what's the worst thing that could happen if we make this decision? Okay, what's the best thing that could happen if we make this decision? Because it automatically raises the bar, and you start to focus on the next level up. So it's. I think that's probably one of the biggest tips that I'd like to give today.
Thank you. And Sharon?
And definitely a support network.
Yeah.
Connect, support, learn and grow,
Yes.
which is all what CBWN is all about.
Yes. Well, I'd like to mention again my 4 written words that I think can really help change people's thinking, and it's the three-step process, which is distract your thinking, move, and then have a positive thought. So you distract your thinking by imagining yourself writing with your wrong hand, I can do this. And even when you think about it, you start to want to write the letters backwards. So now you're using your executive part of your brain, your deliberate thinking. And you can't be thinking of an old habit like, oh, I'm scared, I'm worried about ringing up or booking into that event. All of a sudden you're thinking positive, because you're writing a positive word as well, but it's not just an affirmation. As soon as you do that, you've distracted your brain, you then move, so you would physically stand up or take some deep breaths or touch your toes, anything physical, so that you've changed your state. And then the third part is you set up a positive thought. So in the case of networking or connecting, it would be seeing yourself at a networking event, shaking hands with someone and saying, I'm so glad I met you. Or if you're trying to lose some kilos, you see yourself 10 kilos lighter in a bikini down the beach, or for men, you don't have to. You can wear the bikini if you like. But basically seeing yourself in the environment you want to be in the future, whether it's networking, high-fiving your husband or your partner that you've just got your biggest contract in your new business, whatever it might be, see yourself achieving that. So distract your thinking, I can do this with the wrong hand, move, and then see your anchor thought, and you will 80% of the time carry on and continue forward. And that is what I've done to get myself into a better position. So
I'll hope you'll all join us again next week. Our topic is guilt. You can't help others until you can help yourself. And our special guests are Tara Millell of taramillell.com and Ben Mackey, Director of Scribe Copywriting. So be sure to tune in next week.
thank you. And I have been involved with both of those guests in previous situations, and they're both amazing and they'll have a lot to contribute on that topic. So keep watching next week. Thanks again to our sponsors, particularly AJR Counselling, Coaching and Consulting. Thanks, Adam. And to our film crew, the amazing Gary Burgess this week. Thank you, Gary, from Gary Burgess Promotional Videos.
And remember, you can watch us through YouTube, Facebook and LinkedIn. You'll also see a link on the Twitter and IGTV page, and you can listen on podcast. Please ask a question, leave a comment, share the show with people, or simply just support us by giving us a like.
And look us up under Stronger Than My Excuses on the Facebook page. Although we're here to offer information today about mindset, we want to make sure that if you are having any sort of urgent situation in your life, that you call Lifeline on 13 11 14. So I'd like to thank our guests again, Deputy Mayor Jane Smith, thank you very much, and Matt Lusted, President of Wyong Regional Chamber of Commerce, and of course my wonderful co-hosts, Sharon Burgess and Adam Rice. Thanks, Adam. See you all on the street.